I understand that in order to have a deep insight, thinking must stop. For thinking to stop, there must already be a deep insight. Where does one start? In this, isn't the brain working to achieve something and thus preventing insight? I don't know what the question means, but we're going to go into it. I understand that in order to have a deep insight, thinking must stop. But for thinking to stop, there must already be a deep insight. Where does one start? In this, isn't the brain working to achieve something and thus preventing insight? I don't know what it all means. Let's go into it. Do we clearly see, each of us, that our brain has become mechanical? We repeat, we live in the past, and the reactions we have are obvious. And the question really is, where does one start? Where does one start to understand the whole problem of existence? Not insight or thinking how to stop thinking, but rather, what is the meaning of all this? If we could start from there and then investigate more and more, deeper and deeper, then we'll come upon something which may be not mechanical. That is, if we can realize that our brains have become mechanical, that is, when you insult another, the other insults you. Action, reaction. Right? A reward and punishment. On this basis, action, reaction, from that reaction, action, and so on, like a tide going in and out. And that's a mechanical process. Right? Our memories are mechanical. We live in the past. If I have an experience, and it is an exciting experience, it has brought about several rewards, and I cling to that, which then becomes mechanical. If I am attached to a person, or to an idea, or to some kind of experience, then that being attached, then it becomes mechanical. You repeat over and over again the same thing. Sexual and every other form of repetitive action is mechanical. I hope this is clear. Then the question is, can this mechanical habit, mechanical brain, which has been programmed to be mechanical, because seeking security it is seeking security in the mechanical, constant repetition, repeating that your own prejudices, is a mechanical process. I think that's fairly clear. And so the question is whether this mechanical process can stop. Yeah? Suppose one has a habit, either smoking, drugs, alcohol, sexual, and habit of belonging to something, belonging to a group, belonging to some kind of orthodox religion and so on. There you feel safe. There you feel you are among people who also think alike. And this mechanical process gives one a sense of security. This is again fairly clear. I hope you are listening. Are you listening, if I may ask? Because I don't see the point of coming here, going through all the heat and the troubles one goes through, and sitting here and going off dreaming something else while you come to listen to each other. So please let us listen to each other. Which doesn't mean that you must accept what the speaker is saying or cling to your own prejudices, conclusions, and so on. But both of us are understanding a very, very complex problem. The problem is living, existence. And in that existence of our daily life and so on, one finds the brain keeps on repeating the same thing over and over again. You may put a different disc, but it will be the same thing repeated. And so on. So our brains have become mechanical through long evolution, through innumerable experiences, and the brain has accumulated a great many memories and keeps on repeating the memories. You know, we know this. And therefore, the brain has become mechanical. And in this mechanical process, it seeks security. That's all we want. We all want security, both biological, physical, as well as psychological. And when a brain becomes mechanical, there is secure. One thinks there is security. As long as I repeat that I am British, that I am French, that I am Hindu, there is security. But that divisive process brings about insecurity. Right? That's clear. Now, the question is, before we go into the problem of insight, the question is whether this mechanical process can come to an end. This mechanical process brings about a deterioration in the brain. Right? Do we see this? The brain needs stimulation. The brain needs challenging, questioning, doubting, asking, demanding. But if it is routine, it stops demanding. It stops being sharp, clear. And so gradually it deteriorates. You can see it all round. Perhaps not here. But you can see it from almost from teenagers to old age. I wonder if one is aware of one's own brain deteriorating by constant repetition. You may revolt against the old and fall into another pattern and then repeat that. I'm no longer a Christian, but I'm a Buddhist. I'm no longer a Buddhist, but Tibetan. You know, the game one plays all over the world. So the question is whether the brain can stop deteriorating. That's a really very, very serious question. As long as we are living in the past, which we are, because we live in memory, right? We are memories. And that is the past. There is no future memory. Future memory may be projected from the past, meeting the present, and modifying itself and going on. Right? This is the process we all do. The past, meeting the present, modifying itself, and then proceeding further. But it is still the past in movement. Is it? So, is there a way of looking at life, living, which is not merely the continuation of the past? Right? Have I put the question? I find my brain, suppose I find my brain becoming repetitive. The language is repetitive. The symbols that thought has created become repetitive. Language language is not limited, but the limitation of the language creates the symbols, and so on. I won't go into all that for the moment. So, language, the past memories, being attached, tied to an experience, to series of memories, all those are, because they are mechanical, brings about deterioration of the brain. Is this clear? Could we go on from there? Don't please nod your head and say yes, but see your own brain, watch your own brain, watch your own life. Because your life is the activity of action, reaction, memories, and all the turmoil. The deaths, the pleasures, the anxieties, the loneliness, and so on. That's our life. We have lived that way for 1,000,000 years, or more or less, and that is repetitive. War after war, right? War after war in different parts of the world. There have been 2 terrific wars within the last few years. So that has been repeating. So we've come to that point. I hope you have listened to this. When we have come to that point, one asks, why does the brain depend so much on the past, on being programmed? You understand? Is that clear? Why does the brain depend or live with this repetitive action? We are saying it, this repetitive action gives great security. Freedom doesn't give security, right? We'll come to that a little later. So, security is the basis of holding on to the past. Tradition is the past. Those soldiers in London going every morning up and down, you've seen all this. Poor devils. So, now we're asking whether the brain can perceive its own mechanical process, and that very perception brings about a challenge to move away from it. You've understood? I perceive that my brain is mechanical, and I perceive it not as an idea, but actually, right? I perceive it. There is the perception that it is mechanical. That very perception is a challenge, right? Are we getting to meeting this? I perceive a dangerous snake. That's a challenge, right? I have to do something about it. Otherwise, that poisonous snake will kill me. So I have to act, right? There is action takes place when there is perception, right? Are we meeting this? Look, when one is climbing a mountain and you see a precipice, the precipice is a challenge, isn't it? Either you are very capable and so on, or you get dizzy and hold on to a rock and crawl back. So in the same way, when you perceive, when there is perception that the brain is mechanical, being programmed, and in that program there is no security. Though one may want security, there is no security, because the brain is becoming dull, deteriorating. Therefore, in that there is no security, right? Right? Clear? So, when there is perception of a danger, there is action, right? When there is perception that the brain is becoming or has become mechanical, that very perception brings about the energy to end that repetitive action, right? I wonder if you get this. Or we are all together in this? No, no. How am I to talk about it? You tell me what to do. First of all, let's begin. Does each one of us, realize that our brains have become mechanical? Do you realize that? Then, whether you are a philosopher, whether you are a scientist, whether you are a businessman, whether you are following some guru, whether you belong to some religion or not, it is the whole mechanical process is going on, right? as long as that mechanical process is going on, the brain must deteriorate, because the brain needs to be very tremendously active. It is active in mechanical process, right? But it's not active in freedom. Therefore, only in freedom the brain doesn't deteriorate. Is this clear? At least somewhat. Can we move from there? As long as the brain is being programmed, repetitive, there is no freedom. And therefore it must deteriorate. It's like a human being in a prison. And there is no freedom there. Therefore, he is not only biologically, organically, but and also brain, he deteriorates gradually. Clear. Now let's move from there. Nice. After this fortnight of hot weather, it's rain. Cool. It is not how to stop thinking, how to break the routine, but if you see the fact that repetitive action, clinging to something as of an experience which you have had, and so on, are one of the major factors of deterioration. If you see that, then you are brought altogether a different action. Is this clear? Like when there is a perception of danger, physical danger, you act. But when we see that brain is deteriorating because of various reasons which you have explained, you go on. Because you don't see the fact that routine is deteriorating the brain. If you saw it, you will act. You saw fit to come here, right? You've taken the trouble to come here. You took steps, you saved money, or you had a lot of money, you spent money, and so on. But you decided to come here. Similarly, when you see something clearly, the factors of deterioration, you go on. You don't say, well, there must be action, right? Now, from that, let's go into some further. What is the process of thinking? You understand? What is the cause or causations of thinking? We all think, fortunately or unfortunately. Some more, some less. Some with an extraordinary clarity, logic. Others live in a slipshod way. But we all think. And we are never asked, what is the cause of, what is the root of thinking? Yes? You please find out for ourselves, what is thinking? When you are asked a familiar question, your response is immediate. What's your name? Where do you live? And you immediately answer. Why? Because you are familiar with your name, you are familiar with the road and the house you live in, and so familiarity and constant repetition, you reply instantly. Right? Suppose one asks a little more complex question. There is an interval between the question and the answer. In that interval, you are searching your memory, you are looking. You are saying, I wonder if this is right, is wrong. You follow? The interval between the question and the answer is time interval. In that time interval, you are searching for an answer, whether in the encyclopedia or in your own memory or asking somebody, right? So there is an interval between question and answer, which is the time interval. Suppose one asks some very complex question and you say, I don't know, right? What is the distance from here to Mars? You don't know. And you say, I don't know, right? So, familiarity, an interval of time between question and answer, and saying, I don't know. So, this whole process is thinking. Right? Right, sir? Are we together in this? This whole process of question which you are familiar with, question which demands time, and say, I don't know. All that is a process of thinking. Thinking along a particular line, if you are attached to a particular experience, and you hold on to that experience, and thinking then is round that experience. Right? Shall we wait a minute? Shall I go on? I'll go on in spite of the rain. And thinking is based on memory. If you had no memory, you can't think. And memory is gathered in the brain as knowledge. Knowledge comes from experience, right? Experience, knowledge, memory, thought. One must be absolutely clear on this, right? Experience is always limited. Whether you are experiencing pleasure, pain, sorrow, loneliness, depression, anxiety, all that is limited. A man who says, I'm enlightened, right? You understand? When a person is asked, are you enlightened? And the other fellow says, I am. That very experience that he has illumined is limited. No sane, rational, really enlightened man says, I'm enlightened. Right? So, all experience is limited. And therefore, all knowledge in the future or in the past is limited. So, thought, which is the child of memory, and memory is limited. So, the whole thinking process is limited. Is this clear? Can we go on from there? Now, what happens when thought, which is limited, when there is limitation, what takes place? You understand my question? Are you listening to the rain? Shall we go on? Can you all hear what poco meno? Can we go on now? When one is thinking about oneself, which most of us do, that thinking about oneself is very limited. You may expand that thinking about oneself as illumined, as great writer, or have may we go on now? As we were saying, if we are concerned with ourselves, as most of us are, even those people who say, I've reached the height, they're thinking about themselves. And consequences of that thinking about oneself is very divisive, right? If you are thinking about yourself and I am thinking about myself in various ways, it brings about a division. Therefore, in that division there is conflict. Right? So whatever is limited must bring about conflict. I am an Arab and you are a Jew. Or if you don't like that, I am a Jew, you are an Arab. And so on. So wherever there is limitation, there must be conflict. This is very important to understand, because our whole life, all our lives are based on limitation, right? And therefore we are in perpetual conflict. Surpass. Monsieur Coué. I wonder if we realize this, not verbally as a mere statement, that wherever there is division, that wherever there is division in our relationship, however intimate, national division, economic division, social division, religious divisions, there must be conflict, struggle, war. This is a law, the law of Moses. So, when one realizes that, and that self-concern nationally and so on is brought about by thought, and therefore thought being limited must inevitably create conflict, right? Is this clear? This is logical, right? Rational, say that wherever there is division, thinking about myself, my ambition, and my other person thinking about his ambition, his fulfillment, this division must breed conflict. So the question then is it possible, seeing the truth of this, that as long as I'm an Indian, as long as I'm concerned with my piano, with my enlightenment, or with my writing a book, and so on, it must invariably create disturbance, turmoil, conflict, ultimately ending in war. If one sees, if there is a perception of that, what is the action? Not how to stop thinking. I wonder if you see that. There is a perception that thought has created this division. Religiously, you can see it very well. As long as I'm a Catholic, as long as you're something else, we are going to be in turmoil with each other. So, and that is the product of thought. So what is one to do? You perceive the fact. Does the very fact free you? You understand? Or does the fact merely remain as an idea? You understand? Are you not going to sleep? Are we still? The rain has gone, so we can begin again. When one makes a statement like this, that wherever there is division, there must be conflict in relationship and so on. Is that a fact to you? That is, you see the reality of it, or you merely see the idea of it. Is this clear? A fact, like a serpent, is a fact. But you can draw an idea about a serpent and live in that idea. Therefore, you are living with a non-reality away from fact. Is this is this clear? Can we go on from there? Which is it we are doing now? Not tomorrow, now, as you are seated, as you are sitting there, and we are discussing, and we discover that where there is division, there must be conflict. Is that a fact to you, truth to you, or is it just an idea? Vous avez compris ça? Ho capito, signore? What is it? Is it a fact, like you are hungry, or is it an idea that you are hungry? You understand? Which is it? If it is a fact, it is so that where there is division, there must be conflict. Or you hear only a statement of it. Therefore, that's nothing to do with the fact. So which is it for you? If it is a fact, it is so that you will fall down a precipice. That's a fact. So you move away from it. So the fact is a challenge which you must answer. Right? Or you are answering. Or say, well, that's too much. I don't know what the danger will be, and so on and so on. So it's up to you. So it's not a question of thought stopping, but seeing the fact. And this perception of the fact in itself brings about a movement which is not thought. I can't go on repeating this umpteen times. And the questioner asks, what is insight? What is it? How does this perception and action instantaneously take place? That's what he means. You understand? Is the question clear? The question, that is there an action which is not based on memory? Of course. If it is based on memory, it's repetitive. Is there an action? Please ask this question of yourself. Is there an action which is not based on past memories, past experiences, and therefore on thought? And if there is action of such kind, that action is limited, and therefore must breed conflict. So, is there an action which is not based on past memories, experience, and so on? Right? That's the question. And he asks, he says, that is insight. You understand? Seeing something clearly, acting. Right? For us, we don't see something clearly, we take time. During that interval, other changes take place, so our actions are always confused. Whereas, is there an action? Please ask this question of yourselves. I am putting forward to you this question. Please listen to the question and find out if the question is logical, rational. It is rational, logical, because our actions are based on memories, on the past experiences. Therefore, our actions are mechanical. And the questioner says, is there a movement, an action, in which the past thought doesn't enter at all? Is the question clear? Now we're going to find out. Right? The thought as an instrument of action, apart from the technological field, has created havoc in the world. Right? Are you clear on this? Oh my God. Must I repeat all over that again? Thought has built marvelous cathedrals, and thought has put all the things in the cathedral, the ceremonies, the rituals, the mass, all the dresses they wear, all that is the product of thought and not divine revelation. One might like to think that, but it's the movement of thought, right? And that movement, limited, therefore must create conflict. So, do we see that the activity of thought necessary in certain area, right, but may not be necessary in other areas? Like in my relationship, in one's relationship to a wife, husband, girlfriend, so on, in that relationship, if that relationship is based on thought, therefore divisive, therefore conflict. That's clear. You all see that. Therefore, where there is conflict, there is no love. Jealousy is not love. Ambition is not love. But when the wife and the husband are both ambitious, right? Therefore, there is perpetual conflict. So, thought has its place, technological from here to there, and thought may not have a place at all, psychologically. Do you understand? So, find out for yourself whether there is an action which is not based on thought. And the speaker says there is. Don't accept his word. Doubt what he is saying. Question what he is saying. He is no authority. He says, and he will give you a reason for it presently, that there is an action. That there is an action which is not based on thought. Right? We're going to find out. Be skeptical, please. Doubt, question what he's talking about. Hasn't it ever happened to you in your life, seeing something true and acting, right? Without the process of thought, without the process of rationalization, without remembering, it must, right? It must have happened. Every person has moments of this. Clear perception without any movement of thought, action taking place at the same time. No? Aren't you all human? Is this very strange? Some call it intuition, but the word intuition is a rather dangerous word. You can intuit your own desires, say, I want that, that's you follow? So, there is a movement. Movement is action. There is a movement in which thought doesn't interfere at all. I'll show it to you. Love is not thought. Right? Agree to that? Love is not desire. Right? Do you see that? Love is not pleasure. Love is not ambition, jealousy, and so on. Hate. So, through negation of what love is not, the positive is. Is that? Are we doing this? Can you put aside jealousy, hate, ambition, aggression, violence? All that is not love. So, love is an action in which desire is not, pleasure is not. Therefore, love, if there is such thing as that, from that any action taking place is not the movement of thought. Are we together in this, or is it all just a lot of verbiage? Now put it round the other way. We operate from the background of memory. All our actions are based upon the past, knowledge and so on. Now, can the brain see the fact that is operating from the past, perceive that, and see the consequences of that, and seeing the consequences of it doesn't depend on the past, right? And therefore, there is an action which is not of memory. I can't keep on repeating this. Are we getting anywhere near? There is an insight which is not born of remembrance. Insight is not of time. Right? Time is thought. Time is memory. Time is experience, knowledge. And as long as we depend on time, which is divisive, therefore conflict, and to see this, to perceive the actuality of this, then only is there an insight into